Good morning. It is January 14th. Happy New Year. I think it's, according to Larry David, it's too late to say that, but it's my first time seeing many of you this year, so happy 2026. This is our quarterly meeting of the Friends of the Fall Line, and I will pull my presentation up now. As usual, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, and I'm seeing folks
Stick to
from
the
all
back
over the
there for a minute.
region um, for some exciting updates about the Fall Line. And I think let's see, from a new face standpoint, I definitely see Nathan here. Thanks for joining us. It's been a little while. Um, I think you just hired one of our friends that I see recently, Kate from the city. So happy you're here.
Oh, that's good.
Okay.
This chair is up
I have
against the
took the
oxygen
opportunity to
supply
replace
and
one
it's
of our pictures
turning it
here with
on.
the nice photo from our ribbon cutting on DB1. It was just in September, but I feel like it was just yesterday. Funny how time travels here. No major updates here from funding on the fall line. The There haven't been a lot of
Can I have
opportunities
my
to
coffee again?
seek new construction funding since the last time we met.
That's
So
good.
we're still at approximately 291 million for the overall project. And of course, the long story of this is that a lot of this money has been raised um, early in the process, which is allowing multiple construction projects to happen at the same time. And we can get on that, discuss that a little bit here on the next slide. Not much official change here since the last time we met. Shortly after the most recent Friends of the Fall Line meeting was the open house for the latest updates to the DB2 southern 10 miles in Petersburg, Colonial Heights, and about halfway through Chesterfield. And so that project continues to move on. I have been going to their monthly stakeholder meetings, and it's highly technical, but the things definitely seem to be moving forward, and they are piecing together how they're going to phase the different projects. And certainly, I'd love to open the floor to anyone from VDOT or Chesterfield Beyond to talk about this. But I will say, our longtime partner Scott Fisher, who's been the mega project engineer for these projects, this project, the Mayo Bridge, someone who worked on the Virginia Capitol Trail, is no longer with the Richmond district, and VDOT has moved to central office. So last I checked in with Scott, they don't have a direct replacement for that position. But we wish Scott well. He's been so great to work with over the past several years. And I'm sure he's doing great things now in central office. Um, Before I open the floor to our local partners, and I've got a few slides from Henrico, I do want to sort of present this as an opportunity for any of our local or state partners to give us any slides about your sections or comparable development, whether it's connections to the fall line, et cetera. Um, and We have a few things that are really in the hopper right now. So we talked about DB2. The latest I heard is that the schedule for the groundbreaking will be in Q2 or Q3 this year. So really, I think it'll be coming down the pike pretty soon. So that'll be obviously a major milestone and the biggest singular section of the trail. And once it actually gets up to speed, it's only about 2.5 years for that 9.5, 10 miles to be built. So that's pretty exciting. We have a number of sections in the city of Richmond that are really coming towards active construction phase. We've got Bryan Park. The mayor just announced accelerating the project over the Manchester Bridge and Commerce Road, and the um, Kanawha Plaza section is also, I think, ready to have its ground broken relatively soon. I know that I gave a friendly suggestion to the city that it might be nice if we could do that during the General Assembly session in the next 2 months to have a VIP audience in attendance, but we'll see if that ends up being appropriate. And I think with that, I can leave it to Henrico to talk about what they're doing right now because I know that Ryan's on with a couple of things. But is there anything else that I didn't address? And there's an active section that's somewhat in development, or something that we should all be paying attention to. Now would be a great time to jump in. righty, hearing none, I'm
Uh,
gonna
sorry.
let Ryan jump in. Oh, Philip.
Yep. Brantley, the only thing I would mention from Hanover is that our section is open and we have prototypes for the permanent signage, and that should be installed along our section by the end of February.
That's great. I will say I didn't include a picture. My presentation was getting a little bit long, so Philip invited Chet from the CVTA and us from Bike Walk to join Hanover and Ashland, including Emmy, and Joe Vadunas from the Hanover team to review the prototypes. And one, they looked awesome, but they were the first time that these had been made, it was clear that a couple of little revisions would really improve the design. So I certainly love for Emmy or Philip to uh, elaborate on any of those design changes. But I will say they just look they're big and blue and they're beautiful, and I can't wait to see them installed. Emmy, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna not talk about the signage. I can let Philip talk about that if there's more. But in the Ashland for the Ashland section, obviously the trail ends at Carter Park, which is about a mile from our downtown. So we created an extension trail into our downtown that is made up of shared use path or sidewalk, and we put signage along it at the end of the week. So, well, in 2 days, because it's Wednesday, on Friday, we're going to begin install of a functional trailhead. So it's a functional piece of art. We did an RFP for an artist to come in, and it's really cool. It talks about the fall line, talks about Ashland. It's being installed at our library, which is the end of that trailhead or that extension trail into our downtown. So the installation of that starts on Friday, and it'll be great for photos and placemaking and kind of celebrate the fall line in Ashland and the greater Richmond region. So I'm very excited for that. There'll be a ribbon cutting at some point once everything's installed. But that's and then we're kind of hanging out until we get that wayfinding signage along the trail in conjunction with Hanover. So.
I'll say if it doesn't delay your timeline too long, and certainly don't do this if that's if it doesn't work. It might be nice to pair it with a bike month event, a bike ride, or something like that. If May ends up working out for a ribbon cutting for that art installation. Philip, did you
Uh,
want to talk more about the um, wayfinding signage and the any of the details about what it's looking like?
yeah, I don't know if I can drop a file in the chat, but all the changes, the recommended changes were presented to the CVTA TAC back on December 19th, I believe. So there was a PowerPoint presentation that kind of goes over the changes that we made. And so I would recommend anybody goes there if they're interested in seeing the changes.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Um, Ryan, are you on? I got a few slides for you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Morning, everybody. And I guess beforehand, thanks to Philip and everybody, Ashland and or Hanover for working through all the signage stuff. That'll make things a lot easier for the rest of us when we get to that point. So really appreciate y'all. So Brantley mentioned I guess fall line adjacent. So this is my, I guess, quick update. We have a road diet project, a 2 mile long road diet project along Dumbarton Road. So that connects Brook Road and Azalea Avenue or US Route 1 with Staples Mill Road. And so that's about 2 miles. And right kind of smack dab in the middle of that will be the future Fall Line Trail crossing. It's kind of where the arrows are pointed there. But we're really excited for this project. It's kind of been coming down the pipe for quite some time now, and just happy to report that it's I'd say 95% finished. All the striping is done. We are waiting on some traffic signal replacements that will, and one of those intersections will actually include some dedicated bicycle signal crossing at Bird Hill, which is Bird Hill Road, which is closest to Staples Mill. But anyway, just an exciting bicycle connection to where the Fall Line Trail will be constructed here, hopefully soon. So that yeah, a couple of photos there. Brantley, you can scroll over. I think there are just a couple more. pictures on the next slide of some fun bike lanes. But anyway, yeah. So this was a four lane road that has gone on its diet for the new year, and yeah, just happy, excited that it's almost finished. So one fall line adjacent report there. Um,
Ryan, is this Henrico's first use of green paint?
that wow, I should know the answer to that. Sharon, do you know if we have green paint anywhere else? I think we do, but I
Do,
can't
but I
remember
can't
where.
remember where
Pretty sure you
specifically
do.
where. This is one of the newer ones. But
That's exciting.
This is Phil Riggin. No, there's definitely some green paint in Henrico. Near me on North Ridge Road, there's green
Wow.
paint.
oh, that's right. Yeah.
Thank you, Phil.
Rich. Yeah.
Yeah, green. There's a lot of back and forward about the green paint usage, but now that we're kind of rolling out bike lanes all over the place, I think you'll see more. But this is definitely the highest profile project that's using green paint. So anyway, um, more fall line direct update that we're really excited about. So one of our segments, the Villa Park segment, actually went to ad late last week on Friday. So really exciting. It's a little over a mile long segment that connects East Perham Road with Lakeside Avenue. So that went to ad last week. The bids close February 10th. Kind of along those lines, we are also anticipating segments south of Lakeside Avenue. So from Lakeside Avenue down to Dumbarton Road, that is kind of several segments being packaged together, and that the goal for that is in April, mid-April. We still are we'll need to go through, I guess, VDOT's authorization to advertise process, but we're right there, and yeah, so I think we'll have several of these segments under construction here in the next couple of months. So we're really excited about that.
Thanks, Ryan. And this really pairs nicely with the Lakeside area plan that Henrico has been working on. I know they had a number of public meetings around creating a vision. I think the terminology they were using is like a garden district, as essentially an extension of the aesthetic and history of the Lewis Ginter Botanical Gardens, and really looking at and imagining what Lakeside Avenue looks like through the commercial corridor and beautification and really interesting stuff, including bike lanes, but also thoughtful connection across a really short distance over to the Brook Road corridor to get people from the fall line into this what I'm imagining to be a trail oriented district.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sorry to go back, but I should have also mentioned, because they were talking about the northern section into Hanover. One other project that's getting close to finished, I think sometime this spring, is the Glover Park extension. Glover Park is kind of right over the Hanover Henrico line, and that park is undergoing a major expansion project, and there'll be there'll be a new road opened up onto Woodman Road that already has kind of a shared use path connection to the Fall Line Trail right there. So I think within the next couple of months, you'll have kind of a just a new place where you could, I guess, park if you need to and ride up to Ashland, ride back, or vice versa, just to kind of have your first real trailhead in Henrico County within Glover Park. So we were out there last week taking a look at the progress of the construction on the park, and there's a lot going on, but yeah, that's the goal, is to have that park open in the spring.
Awesome. We look forward to that.
Yeah, that's all I've got.
Um, any more updates about the fall line development itself or anything in the corridor or connections before I move on? Thanks, everyone. All right. Well, we're really excited. Sportsbackers is on the precipice of leading its next substantial study trip. If you've been following us for a while, or maybe you've been on one of these trips before, we've gone to Atlanta, Indianapolis, Bentonville, Arkansas, and Durham, in varying sizes. From we've actually gone a few more places, New York and DC. Some of them have been relatively small staff or staff plus a few folks trips, and up to about 40 people on bus trips to DC, which we've done twice. This is going to be, in some ways, our biggest trip in that we're taking 25 people to Greenville, South Carolina, to study the Swamp Rabbit Trail. With At the moment, we've got 5 of our partner localities, sending 1 to 3 staff members. We have local funders, we have artists and community members, including partners from our Fall Line Placemaking Collaborative, joining to study not only the Swamp Rabbit Trail as a model trail, but specifically to follow the most recent Chamber RVA's inner city visit, which took leaders from around, from the business community, from the local government delegation from our whole region to see this. And I'm told from multiple angles that the Swamp Rabbit Trail really impressed people, and not only for how great the trail itself is, but from connecting to local parks, to incorporating art and storytelling, and sort of becoming a canvas for cultural narratives and inclusion. And so we're hoping to take people who are 1 or 2 levels removed from our top executives from across the region to see the same thing, have the same impact, and to figure out a way to actually get our hands on and developing these kinds of projects. We really can't wait, and it's only a few weeks away now. We're going in early February, so some of you will be joining us, and appreciate your dedicating a few days to this study trip with us. We continue to work and figure out the role that we can play with art related to the Fall Line. It's obvious, and we've said many times, that all of our model trails incorporate placemaking and art as a not just a nice to have, but essential component to trail-oriented design and opening the door to people using these trails. And in our latest meeting of the Fall Line Placemaking Collaborative, we dug into some art and theme questions to kind of get a sense of how our art could start to represent the communities that it connects, to have bigger stories. And that is now nested in our multi-month process to really re-energize the Fall Line website. It's always been kind of an iterative process with the website, where we got a new one about a year ago, and now we want to really start focusing on the features that are needed for users to be able to find information that they want. And it's like every time we talk about the website, we're talking about visuals, we're talking about language that people find accessible, and it became so clear that the visuals that we're choosing have some holes that we can try to, excuse me, I'm just all of a sudden losing my voice. So the thought came up about how sports backers can lead conversations where art starts to come out of it. Who's going to produce the art? Where will it be produced, and what will the art be of? Ultimately, we're not big on having to, thumbs up or thumbs down these things. Ultimately, we want to have a collaborative, vibrant corridor. That means a lot of people are going to have their hands in this. But we just so happen to have a headquarters right on the Fall Line Trail and the opportunity to create some art ourselves. So we asked the Fall Line Placemaking Collaborative what kind of art might make sense, and a lot of discussion centered around animals, sculpture of an animal that might make sense for the trail, and paired with how we've been thinking about the website, the conversation around the potential for a mascot came up. And with digging into that a little bit deeply, the potential for a firefly seemed to be a mascot animal that could make sense for the Fall Line. We like the alliteration of firefly. It's very much an animal that people have nostalgic and warm feelings for. We love seeing a field full of fireflies. They happen to be somewhat suppressed right now. They're rarer to see, and there's some environmental factors there that are, I think, nice, sort of a nice adjacent message related to getting people outdoors and the natural areas that this trail will connect. And So this is a very much a soft opening to a concept. Like no hard decisions have been made, but we kind of want to explore the potential for a mascot for the fall line, and if it could be a firefly, which is one of many things that we considered, and it's got sort of our first or maybe second level of go ahead from a stakeholder group that could have downstream effects. Things like, do we have cute little fireflies on our website? Do we have does it become a theme that pops up in various places around the whole corridor in art of multiple formats? It could be in little Easter egg stickers. It could be in murals. We could have a sculpture. And with sort of full disclosure, we certainly have started the conversation about the potential for a firefly or other kind of sculpture to be a signature trailhead piece at Sports Backers headquarters. We have not sought any kind of approval, so we're approaching this in a conversational way first before we start to seek approvals and find specific funding and work with specific artists. But I think that's the direction that we want to go. And this is our first time really going public with it. We've talked to our marketing team a fair amount. We've talked to the Placemaking Collaborative a number of times. And what we want to open the door to is a conversation of, does a firefly not work? Is there something that, like, do we have an aversion to a firefly for any reason? And are there any good alternatives? I think I want to work from general to specific and not the other way around. I don't want to necessarily go backwards on like really opening the door to an infinite possibility of what we could choose. But I think it's a fun thing to explore. It's definitely, we're working towards some kind of shared agreement about a mascot or icon that would make sense for us. And there's a firefly trail. Oh, we're just gonna have to. Oh gosh, we'll see.
I don't think there'll be much. I don't think there'll be much confusion. They are leaning. The reason it's called the Firefly Trail is related to it being a rail trail, and the former rail line looked like fireflies with the sparks flying through the woods. So they don't really use any like mascot. It's more about the rail than it is like physically a firefly. I mean, they have like some firefly stuff in, but I don't think it's gonna be. I don't think a confusion would come up with that.
So I appreciate that. I've included a silly, but also I think kind of poignant example of how this firefly could look, and I want to give Natalie a lot of props for jumping into using some AI graphic design tools to see what we could play with. When I look at this, it looks like it could very much live on a cereal box, which I think is kind of fun. But it's also like, you could imagine that it's a friendly character. You could see this living as a sculpture. You could see it living as like little Easter eggs and corners on a website or published materials. And if we had grand ideas, we could imagine having a different version of the Firefly in all 7 localities. And so like there's an opportunity for us to kind of be creative. Or it could be the same character that is doing something different in each of those each example. However, this is conceptual ideas, and we're not pushing for anything in particular. We kind of want you as the Friends of the Fall Line and our art community and our friends Fall Line Placemaking Collaborative to find something that we can agree on so that we can actually start moving this stuff forward. And I think what that will look like is Sports Backers has the opportunity to probably buy one piece of art and have it at our website or have it at our office, and to think like, can this be a spark that helps to start that next implementation? And if you're familiar with some of the local artists, like the B Cycles by Matt Lively in Richmond, are really well liked and they're notable and recognizable. Something like that could develop out of this kind of exploration. So I think I'm certainly happy to have more conversation about the Firefly in general, but I think right now, like, know that we're kind of playing in this space, and eventually I think we're going to ask Henrico what they think so that we can start moving towards the incremental process of putting something at our headquarters. Otherwise, related to art, we were very excited to take a few artists to Greenville with us to kind of, again, explore what we might be able to take from what works there to implement along our corridor. Our Bike Month theme is going to be very much centered around art. at our October meeting, we had folks from the Manchester Art Park, the Little Giant Society, explain their concept of a kind of a living curated museum of art or art gallery, very much in the Fall Line corridor by the Manchester Bridge, and that's an opportunity for us to really explore with getting people involved with the Fall Line alignment and with art, and we look forward to exploring that more. And lastly, we've reached out to Hanover County Public Schools for the opportunity to have Hanover school like art classes produce art that could live somewhere in the Fall Line corridor. Our original thought, and certainly there's room for this to adapt for sure, but we've got some conceptual agreement that we could install art along the railed fences along the current existing section of the Fall Line on DB1, modeled after what has art that we've seen on the Neuse River Trail near where my dad lives in North Carolina. Just imagine we have locally made children's art that gets rotated out every year or every season, that is flat and doesn't cause any damage to the rails. Obviously, there's some agreement that needs to happen between VDOT and Hanover, or it might also nicely fit within their existing agreement. But we're working towards this concept of how can we start to get local buy-in and local kind of participation in Fall Line art and placemaking, and what better way to do it than working with public school students who can get their art displayed in a place that they can go visit. Certainly parents, I think, would like that as well. So these are things that we're exploring, and would love to see this kind of effort proliferate. Switching gears for sure. The General Assembly starts today. I think they ring the bell in 1 hour. Probably the most notable legislative issue that we're familiar with is Delegate Krizek has now, I think for the third or fourth year, is carrying what is called the Great Outdoors Act, Virginia Great Outdoors Act. That is a $200 million appropriation. Actually, I should double check that number is right. It is previously a $200 million appropriation, but I do know it would include $50 million for trail development, which is the most recent attempt, and there haven't been any other parallel or competing attempts to get trail funding at a state level since 2021. So this is the latest thing to pay attention to if you're looking for state investment in trails. Natalie and I went to Cleveland for the Trail Nation Conference, the first of its kind, to my knowledge, put on by the Rails to Trails Conservancy. And I've got a couple of pictures of pretty slides, but I'll say we were very impressed with Cleveland in general. They have a really extensive trail network through connecting their region, and really interesting place to visit, like lots of industrial history that in some places we have here as well. Really cool placemaking opportunities. They did a lot of outdoor branding with their Cleveland sign. They actually have, I think, 5 or so of these that you can visit around town. You can see an example of a tunnel or like an arbor type installation with lights over a wide pedestrian path. There was a presentation by our friends in Atlanta at the Atlanta Beltline that showed that they actually have a close to 12-to-1 return on investment on the model trail for the Fall Line, the Atlanta Beltline. They've put about $700 million into it and generated more than $9 billion in increased value in their region. We have to be able to tell the story very effectively that this is not a nice to have kind of project. This is actually a good investment decision from our region, and we continue to be successful in that storytelling, but we have not quite gotten to that astronomical level, and I think we're very much working iteratively to get there, and it becomes more and more in focus the more sections come online, and you start to see some of the impacts, the positive economic impacts around these areas. I think it's okay to share that the county administrator from Henrico was already seeing increases in restaurant activity and other trail-oriented activity after DB1 opened, and that's at this point I think anecdotal, but we're looking forward to figuring out how we can explore that more analytically, and including working with future opportunities with graduate students to explore that. So we're moving in that space, and some of you would have 7 years ago now gone to our. We brought folks from the Indianapolis Cultural Trail to a day-long session that we hosted at the Boathouse down on the adjacent to the Virginia Capitol Trail. And Karin Haley here is the executive director of the Indianapolis Cultural Trail Foundation, and she has been just so helpful to us learning the big vision, learning the process, and it was good to see her in person again. We hadn't seen her since we went to Indianapolis in 2023. Just some pretty pictures from Cleveland. It was a really big conference. I would recommend if you're going to this sort of thing, and they put it on again. I'm not entirely sure that they're going to. There were certainly several hundred people, probably 500 people were there. Cleveland had some really great trails. One again showing some cool architectural history. This on the upper left here, I squint and I see the Manchester Bridge, and I feel like we have some very similar architecture that we can play off. We have our own beautiful river. And I also shared this picture on the bottom right of a grade separated crossing. There were many of these that they did really nicely using rail infrastructure and other opportunities to not have us cross at grade with cars. Certainly not every time, but it's very much appreciated when they do it right. And the more we travel, the more we see these trails built across the country, the more we see really thoughtful uses of this kind of thing. And I want to ensure that we're exploring those opportunities in our region for these kind of grade separated crossings. And that's that. I will say, I think Cleveland is not a city that necessarily has a reputation for being a really cool place to visit, but I would go back in a heartbeat. The trails were really cool. The riverfront experience was really cool. And not just the river, but of course there's the big lakes. They call it the North Coast of the U.S. because they have a great lake right there. And they actually have a national park not far from downtown. It's like a 30-minute bus ride to get to Cuyahoga River National Park, I think is what it's called. And yeah, I didn't want to prolong this with a lot of pictures, but it was a really great trip, and I'd encourage you to check it out. I'm changing themes here, and this is not a regular subject matter that we include in the Friends of the Fall line, but it really is a topic at the top of people's minds today that in the Richmond region we've had a recent increase and a really concentrated period of pedestrian fatalities that have brought to light really a bigger trend that doesn't get as much attention as it usually does, or I should say maybe should warrant on a regular basis, but because of this recent concentration and the high-profile fatality of a friend of mine and friend of many of us, Bill Martin from the Valentine Museum, has really spotlit this issue. And so I ran these numbers using publicly available Virginia DMV data as well as some recent reports from the Richmond Police Department. And this shows, unfortunately, that we have a pedestrian safety problem that is on an upward trend, has continued to be on an upward trend for decades. And unfortunately, the past 3 years have really been a notable increase in fatalities. And I want to explain the numbers that I have here. On the upper left, I've got fatalities overall. That's Ks are fatalities in pedestrian or in transportation speak. So I've got the cumulative fatalities over the 16-year period, 2010 to 2025, and then the 3-year period, 2023 to 2025. That's the same for all of these graphs. So the past 3 years are included in that 16-year period just for clarity, but I don't think it changes the outcome of this analysis at all. If you look at on the right, we're controlling for population. So these numbers are now divided into or by 100 per 100,000 people, and you can see my population modifiers there. This is the latest population data for each of the 3 big localities in the region. And by 3 big, it's not just by population size, but also by these are the 3 that have the highest and always have the highest non-interstate crashes and fatalities. On the bottom rung, we have these same numbers divided by the years in that period, and this is an important metric because it helps us kind of conceptualize this a little bit more when we're going longer, evaluating longer periods. And the most important sort of salient condensation of these numbers is the bottom right, which is all these same numbers. It is fatalities during these periods per year per 100,000 population. And what you see is comparing the most recent 3 years that have been completed to the longer 16-year period. And I should note that I choose 16 years because that's as far back as the online data for DMV goes. Richmond and Henrico have a notable increase for fatalities, but regardless of type. So we've seen a 38% increase in Richmond the past 3 years compared to the past 16, and 40% in Henrico. So that's inclusive of car fatalities, car on car, single vehicle crashes, that sort of thing. Does not include interstates. If you look at just pedestrians, you take the pedestrians out of that, we've seen a 76% increase in pedestrian fatalities in Richmond, a 32% increase in Henrico, and a 14% increase in Chesterfield. And I think I'm not going to belabor this too much. The problem is, in my opinion, quite apparent, and we're doing a lot of work in the background to get communities and community leaders to really prioritize solving this problem. Because that 76% number is so high, it makes that 14% number seem relatively low, like maybe that's not a problem, but 14% is itself a pretty significant increase and something that we really want to address. This is a regional problem. There's a lot that can be dug into this. This is a snapshot, and I want to recognize that that's the case. Data analysis could really tease out many other additional takeaways, but it's so apparent that this problem really needs to be addressed in a much more holistic and impactful way. And I look forward to our organization having a role to play in that. One of the most direct ways that we do that is our Bike Walk RVA Academy, which we are launching our 14th edition of. Now applications are open on our website, and we have our first session in early February. So please share that application around if anyone would be interested in getting more active as an advocate. And in our view, this movement of advocates is the only thing that's really helped to increase our investment in biking and walking infrastructure and in trying to address this problem. So thank you very much for listening to this. I know it's not exactly the most fall line oriented thing ever. And I do want to say, sorry, one fatality in the past 2 weeks did happen directly on the fall line alignment in Chesterfield, just north on Route 1, just north of the defense contractors, one of the more notable landmarks in that area. We talk a lot about the fall line as kind of a joyous project. It's a placemaking project. It's an economic development project. It's an active transportation project. But all the way at the bottom of its foundation, it is a safety project. Going back to 2015, when my colleagues and I canvassed Route 1 to talk to pedestrians who were walking on unimproved surfaces and unimproved areas, using walkers to get to places where they needed to get food or to get pro-social behavior and had no other options. We elevated those voices in 2015 when Chesterfield was considering its first Bikeways and Trails plan that passed in November of that year and became a foundational project for the fall line overall. So we've been talking about this for at least 11 or 12 years in Chesterfield and in the region. So I just want to say that someone died on the fall line alignment, future fall line alignment, makes this very clear to understand that this is a safety project as much as it is everything else that I described. So we want to ensure that this project helps to bring that safety to everyone across the region. And that's all I've got for today. Again, we're working very hard to implement the Fall Line Vision Plan that lives on our website. And our next meeting is, it's April 8th, the second Wednesday in April. Okay. Any questions, thoughts?
Thank you, Brantley.
Time.
Yeah, thanks, Brantley. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.